After marrying my husband, who was in a vegetative state, my mother-in-law graciously bestowed upon me a monthly salary of 100,000. I mused to myself, this is no mere vegetative existence. He is undoubtedly my sleeping beauty. However, as time passed, I became privy to the innermost thoughts of my comatose husband. Gently, gently now. Please do not wipe. If you continue, I might just react. How embarrassing. With this newfound feedback, I diligently endeavored in my role as an employee. Eventually, after saving a substantial amount of money in preparation for my escape, he unexpectedly awakened. Seriously? You choose to betray me right before my eyes? I am utterly incensed. Do I possess no dignity at all? 01. In the year of my utmost poverty, I chanced upon a rather peculiar job advertisement, seeking a bride for my son, with a monthly salary of 100,000 yuan. Duties include caring for my son's daily needs. Note, due to an accident, he has become a vegetative state. Exceptional care will be rewarded with additional compensation, without limit. Initially, I suspected it to be a novel scam until I recognized the name of the woman behind the ad. A wealthy and well-known local businesswoman. It dawned upon me that no ordinary person would resort to such a job, yet my destitution left me no choice. My father was drowning in immense gambling debts, and just that morning, he had spoken of seeking death. My darling, it is I who have wronged you. This debt is insurmountable. Perhaps if I perish, you might continue to live. He stood perilously near the window, and I forcibly pulled him back. With unwavering conviction, I declared, in this world, you are my only family. You have raised me alone, and though you may not be a model father, I implore you to live on. Have you considered the profound shadow your death would cast upon my life? He silently wept, repeatedly lamenting his inadequacy. In that moment, fueled by youthful fervor, I reflected on my own situation. Despite being a master's graduate from a prestigious university, my chosen field was a veritable dead end, making it a struggle to earn even 10,000 a month. How could I possibly repay this debt? I pondered throughout the night. The following day, I adorned my face with makeup, donned my remaining decent attire, and set out to respond to that advertisement. 02. Upon my arrival, I discovered that I was far from the only candidate vying for this lucrative position. The vegetative state of the sun meant that there was no possibility of formalities, rendering it a high-paying role akin to that of a live-in caregiver. To my surprise, the requirements set forth by the lady of the house were quite stringent. Those ahead of me, though beautiful, were dismissed for lacking academic qualifications, while those with impressive credentials were rejected for their less-than-pleasing visages. Others were filtered out for reasons pertaining to height, weight, and an array of criteria reminiscent of a royal selection process. When my turn arrived, I presented my resume as if in a formal interview. Mrs. Sher reclined on the sofa, crossing her legs as she perused my credentials. Education, acceptable. Appearance, satisfactory. Stand up and give me a twirl. I complied with her demands and answered several inquiries. The entire affair felt indistinguishable from an interview at a major corporation. Ultimately, she nodded in approval. At the very least, my son will not be embarrassed. Should he awaken, this engagement will be valid. Gratefully, I affixed my signature and inquired about the job responsibilities. She seemed to believe I was eager to marry her son. Before becoming a vegetative state, Shi Jinxiu had indeed been a prominent figure in Yun City, handsome, affluent, the quintessential wealthy scion. Alas, after the accident, his fiancée fled, and his parents divorced. Gradually, his name faded from public discourse. Many young women expressed willingness to marry him, for even in his current condition, he could offer an ordinary person a taste of a luxurious life. However, I was not among them. My sole intention was to earn that money, repay my debts, and vanish. 03. The first encounter I had with Shi Jinxiu was when Mrs. Shi guided me to his room. His chamber occupied a separate floor of the villa, vast and well-equipped with nurses, doctors, and security personnel. They bowed respectfully as Mrs. Shi introduced me. It was quite impressive. Approaching the grand bed, I took a closer look at Shi Jinxiu. Although he had been in a coma for an extended period, he was not without care. His face was somewhat pallid, yet remnants of his former handsomeness lingered. It was a pity to see such a striking man lying there, akin to a sleeping beauty trapped in an eternal slumber. Mrs. Shi's requirements were straightforward. No arduous labor was expected. However, I was to remain in the villa daily, conversing with her son and attending to his hygiene. The doctor had mentioned that if he exhibited a strong will, there remained a possibility for him to awaken. Each month, my salary would be deposited into my account punctually. Rest assured, if you wish to step out, I shall not impede you. However, you must return each day. Should you be unable to do so, I expect notification. For I have no desire for any runaway incidents. Her conditions were reasonable, and I settled into the villa, officially becoming Sir Jinxiu's nominal wife. The days spent caring for him were remarkably easy. My workload comprised merely 2 to 3 hours daily, allowing me ample time to idle by his bedside, scrolling through my phone, reading novels, and sharing the latest gossip with him. Can you believe it? They were together for 20 years before she discovered his infidelity. Let me tell you, no man is trustworthy. Strangely, I felt as though his eyelashes fluttered. Yet, upon looking again, there was no response. I, by nature, was not inclined to venture outdoors, spending the majority of my time nestled within the villa. The servants were considerate enough to provide me with a large recliner beside his bed. A few days later, my best friend called. "What on earth are you doing? I've called you several times and you haven't emerged." I replied, "I'm playing the part of a rich young mistress." My friend scoffed, ridiculing my belief in the advertisement. "Isn't this a new kind of scam? If you believe this, when you're old I'll sell you health products." I turned my phone to show her the lavish villa, merely a corner of which elicited an exclamation of astonishment from her. She quickly shifted her tone. "You must strive. I believe in you. Once you're done, remember to prioritize selling me your second-hand bags." 04. Mrs. Sher imposed no extraordinary demands upon me, expecting only that I remain well-behaved. Nightclubs and such establishments were off-limits. She held traditional views, considering me half her daughter-in-law. Occasionally, she would take me shopping, declaring that as a member of their family, I ought not to appear unrefined, adorning me like a true wealthy heiress. Mrs. Sher treated me exceptionally well. The butler and servants were equally kind, even remembering my dining preferences and delighting me with various desserts daily. It felt as though they feared my departure. As they put it, "The young master has grown up under our watch. Now with the young mistress, he will surely be delighted." Young mistress, you must not give up. One day, the young master will awaken. I even gained a couple of pounds during my stay, appearing less like an employee and more like someone indulging in luxury. I was content with this lifestyle, diligently caring for Sir Jinxiu. Aside from daily body care, I applied moisturizer as though tending to my own skin. Initially, I would blush while touching him, but with time, my shyness dissipated, and I performed the tasks with ease. However, one morning, as I was focused on applying moisturizer, I heard a man's voice. "Gentle. Stop that." I thought I might be imagining things, pausing my hand just before it reached his lower abdomen. Finally. You've stopped." I was about to explode. This time, I distinctly heard a male voice, rather melodious. Yet, the servants and butlers had all left to attend to their duties, leaving the expansive second floor occupied solely by Sir Jinxiu and me. I glanced at Sir Jinxiu, who lay in bed. Then I continued to caress his abdominal muscles, at which point I heard an incredibly clear and sharp explosion of sound. "Stop it. I'm really going to explode. I'm so embarrassed." At that moment, I finally confirmed that I could hear Shijinchi's innermost thoughts. 05. Shijinchi was surprisingly easy to serve. Upon hearing his thoughts, my tasks became increasingly effortless. Sometimes I would even receive his commendations. That feels so good," he would say. "But I don't particularly like the scent. It's a bit pungent. A milder fragrance would be preferable." I would thoughtfully procure a more suitable aroma, thereby earning Shijinchi's praise once again. Occasionally, I would take him out to enjoy the scenery, breathe in the fresh air, and immerse ourselves in the external environment. With the increase in sounds he encountered daily, his desire to share also surged. Sister Wu has always been fond of the butler. She works here and rarely sees him. It's quite challenging. I subtly conveyed to Mrs. Sher the idea of assigning Sister Wu to a different position. On the day Sister Wu began working before the butler, her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Thank you, young madam. You are truly kind-hearted." Sometimes, Shijinchi would even express his doubts. How can this woman be so considerate? I would merely smile modestly, concealing my own accomplishments. After all, the ability to hear thoughts is a marvel beyond imagination. Occasionally, I would engage in minor acts of mischief to reassure him. One night, when the family doctor came to examine Shijinshi, he suddenly remarked, "This doesn't look good." His heart rate has significantly increased. Such a high heart rate is quite rare. Mrs. Sher, the butler, and the servants hurriedly gathered around Shijinshi's bedside. Mrs. Sher was on the brink of tears. "Shouldn't we rush him to the hospital? What on earth is happening?" I felt anxious as I leaned closer to Shijinshi. Why couldn't I hear anything? How was he faring? During our time together, I had come to regard him as a friend. If he were to leave this world while asleep, it would be a tragedy. Yet, as I drew near, I could intermittently hear his voice. It seemed he had fallen into some distressing memories. "No, don't hit me. The car is coming," he murmured. Was this a nightmare? Was he reliving the traumatic incident of the car accident? I grasped his hand and whispered repeatedly in his ear, "Shijinshi, wake up. It's all in the past. You're at home now." Gradually, his heart rate began to stabilize, and the doctor exhaled in relief. It seems he was merely having a nightmare. It was a false alarm. But his elevated heart rate poses a significant burden on his body. Thankfully, it was indeed the young madam who had the solution. Mrs. Sher expressed her deep gratitude. Wiping her tears and still shaken, "This must be a divine connection. Xiaoman, truly, we owe it all to you." 06. Now. I felt more secure in my position within the Sher household, with everyone sincerely addressing me as young madam. Furthermore, Mrs. Sher gifted me a jade bracelet she often wore. I frequently pondered, if Shijinshi never awakens, perhaps I could continue this line of work indefinitely. However, fate had other plans. One day, an unexpected guest arrived at the desolate villa. When Mrs. Sher called me downstairs, I noticed her face had turned various shades of green, clearly distressed, her hands trembling. I grasped her hand tightly, still unaware of what was amiss. Downstairs on the sofa sat a wealthy young lady dressed in exquisite attire, accompanied by her mother, seemingly visiting Mrs. Sher, though their demeanor was far from cordial. The butler discreetly whispered to me that this was Shijinshi's former fiancé, Ruan Yu, who had come with her mother, Madame Ruan, to deliver an invitation for Ruan Yu's upcoming wedding. Initially, the Ruan family had sought to ally with the Sher family, which had been a step up for them, with Madame Ruan often subservient before Mrs. Sher. However, after Shijinshi's accident, they quickly severed ties. Now that Ruan Yu had found a more advantageous match, Madame Ruan sought to flaunt her newfound status. Madame Ruan wore a smile plastered across her face. "Our daughter Ruan Yu has indeed found fortune. She is now engaged to the Bai family. The young master just returned from abroad and is quite taken with her." Mrs. Sher showed no inclination to engage, her expression darkening. Madame Ruan feigned surprise and asked, "And who might this be?" I had already seated myself beside Mrs. Sher, holding her hand. Attempting to maintain composure, Mrs. Sher replied, "This is my daughter-in-law." Madame Ruan scoffed. "I've never seen her in Yunqing. She must be some sort of imposter. Who would marry Shijinshi, given his condition?" "Mrs. Sher, do not blame us for being unsympathetic. Everyone has their own destiny." I could not tolerate it any longer. "If you hold such disdain for the Sher family, why come to visit at all, aunt? Aren't you afraid of bringing misfortune upon yourself?" "Butler, I believe Madame Ruan has other matters to attend to. We shan't prolong this visit. The tea has gone cold. It's time to depart. The Sher family does not entertain guests for meals." "What nonsense are you spouting, young lady? I came here to give your family face." I gestured subtly, and the butler promptly understood. "Madame Ruan, Miss Ruan, the exit is this way." Madame Ruan continued to prattle on, "Oh dear. Don't blame me for speaking unpalatably. The truth is simply as I say. Now that Ruan Yu has found someone better, your Sher family is in quite a predicament." Ruan Yu called out, "Mom," tugging at Madame Ruan's sleeve, successfully leading her away. 07. After their departure, Mrs. Sher remained in a state of distress. I poured her a cup of warm water and fetched some sweets from the butler, draping a blanket over her, which brought her a measure of comfort. I had never liked the Ruan family. Madame Ruan was sharp-tongued and snobbish, though Ruan Yu was a good person whom Shijinshi adored. Unexpectedly, she bore a look of melancholy, and I too felt a pang of sadness, reflecting on how many times I had witnessed such scenes since Shijinshi had become a vegetative state. As an exemplary employee, I still possessed a sense of empathy. I took Mrs. Sher's hand. "Rest assured, he will surely awaken. Once he does, everything will fall into place." At that moment, I could envision a future where I could take my leave with a tidy sum, and the Sher family could regain its former glory. It would be beneficial for both parties. Mrs. Sher, in turn, gratefully clasped my hand. Indeed, that evening I sat by Shijinchi's bedside, recounting the events of the day. After finishing, I mused, "You certainly have good taste. Miss Wan is quite beautiful, possessing an intellectual charm. I've seen many celebrities on television who pale in comparison. This is what a well-bred heiress looks like." Today, Shijinchi's thoughts were particularly animated, even somewhat agitated. "Not attractive at all," he retorted. I was left baffled. If she was so unattractive, why had he ever dated her? Tentatively, I ventured, "No wonder so many men were drawn to her. If I were a man, I would be inclined to marry her myself." Shijinchi scoffed, completely disagreeing. I continued, "What a pity, I won't have the chance now. She is about to marry the young master of the Bai family. He truly has discerning taste." Shijinchi's voice was both cold and haughty. "He has no such discernment. Wan Yu might very well be carrying the air of Prince Wu Yang and is merely keeping a backup. Truly, it's astonishing. Such a scheming woman. And she managed to deceive you. How foolish you were." My eyes widened in disbelief as I rubbed my ears, questioning the veracity of what I had just heard. I paid no heed to Shijinchi's scornful remarks about my naivety. Was that not Wu Yang, the scion of the illustrious Yun City aristocracy? Yet, I had heard whispers that he was already wed. Was this not a case of infidelity? A clandestine affair entangled within a love triangle among the elite? Were such secrets meant for my ears? On the day of Wan Yu's wedding to the young master of the Bai family, Mrs. Sher had brought me along as her companion. Recently, I had engaged her in tending to the flora of the villa, believing that physical activity would distract me from my anxieties. Mrs. Sher's demeanor had considerably improved. However, since that fateful evening when I overheard Shijinchi's innermost thoughts, I found it increasingly difficult to mask my emotions upon encountering Wan Yu. At the wedding, I was determined not to let anyone perceive my turmoil. I felt my face stiffening with restraint. Even when Mrs. Wan derided me, I stood there like a wooden figure, utterly forgetting to retort. Wan Yu was the center of attention, adorned in a wedding gown encrusted with diamonds, resembling a bride who had stepped out of a painting. Mrs. Sher remarked that regardless of the Wan family's circumstances, she held a fondness for Wan Yu. At a loss for words, I remained silent, prompting Mrs. Sher to assume I harbored some resentment, thus she chose not to pursue the topic further. Wan Yu, entwined with the Bai family's young master, radiated sweetness as they shared kisses. To my eyes, she exhibited no signs of being emotionally attached to another man. If Shijinchi's assertions were true, then her pretense was remarkably convincing. As I scanned the gathering, I noticed Wu Yang's presence, which only added to my bewilderment, and I struggled to conceal my abstract expressions. Throughout the vows, Wan Yu exhibited no signs of discord. Even as they greeted numerous guests, she appeared completely composed. The young master of the Bai family was busy flattering Wu Yang, Mr. Wu. It would be splendid if the Bai family could partake in the development of that land in the South City. Wu Yang responded with an ambiguous smile, "As I haven't brought a gift today, consider that piece of land as a wedding present." The young master beamed in response, "How very gracious of you. You must visit our Bai family sometime." I was astounded. Truly, within the upper echelons of society, everyone seemed to be an Oscar-winning performer. I found myself wanting to applaud them all, including Wan Yu. My keen senses detected her hasty departure toward the restroom, and unable to quell my curiosity, I stealthily followed her. Through the restroom door, I heard the unmistakable sound of vomiting. Shijinchi's words rang true. She was indeed pregnant. The constraining wedding gown and the exhausting ceremony had not deterred her. This was an astonishing secret. I hurried back to Mrs. Sher's side before she emerged, my expression now more peculiar than before. Mrs. Sher, noticing my odd demeanor, assumed I was disturbed by the notion of a past romance between Shijinchi and Wan Yu and offered me words of comfort. At that time, Jinqiu was young and naive. Rest assured, they have long since parted ways. I nodded obediently but inwardly protested, "That is not it. I am merely astounded by this scandal." Upon returning, I continued to ponder the implications of this revelation. Did the young master of the Bai family have any inkling of Wan Yu's predicament? Was he oblivious to the precariousness of his own situation? Before I could delve deeper into my thoughts, a resounding crash erupted from outside. Startled, I rushed out with the butler and Mrs. Sher to investigate. To our shock, a middle-aged man had crashed his luxury vehicle into the pillar at the villa's entrance. The butler informed us that this was Mr. Shi, the very father who had abandoned Shi Jinshu when he fell into a coma. Mr. Shi's presence was ominous. Behind him trailed a cadre of bodyguards. I recalled that this villa had initially been under my name, Mrs. Shi's expression darkened. It was agreed during the divorce that this villa would be transferred to my name. I have not remarried and continue to care for Jinshu daily. What do you want? What do I want? Naturally, to reclaim what is rightfully mine. My current wife has given me a child, and it seems this location possesses favorable feng shui. If you are wise, you will vacate the villa. Mrs. Shi trembled with indignation. But that is your son. He is still inside receiving treatment. Mr. Shi scoffed. A comatose vegetable hardly qualifies as my son. At his signal, the bodyguards attempted to enter and rummage through the house. These professional guards far surpassed the villa's staff, leaving Mrs. Shi to plead with them to cease, fearing they might inadvertently harm someone. My anger surged. It was evident that they viewed Shi Jinshu's condition as an opportunity to act recklessly. Yet, this was a family matter, and I could only strive to protect Mrs. Shi. As I shielded her, I silently prayed for a miracle. If there is any justice in the heavens, let Shi Jinshu awaken. The situation had escalated beyond the capabilities of my role as a diligent employee. One by one, the bodyguards began tossing items out of the villa. Eventually, they produced a stretcher to carry Shi Jinshu outside. I directed my pleas toward the entrance. Awaken. If you do not, your mother will be tormented. But silence lingered. Mr. Shi urged them, hurry up. I need to get back to change my son's diaper. Mrs. Shi's eyes brimmed with tears, unable to fathom how her former partner could be so callous. Are you truly intent on being utterly heartless? Mr. Shi merely smirked. I am merely reclaiming what belongs to me. My son awaits. I thought I heard Shi Jinshu's voice in my head. Am I not your son? But as they lifted him onto the stretcher, I gasped in shock. Though he lay there, frail and pallid, he had undeniably awakened. Both Mr. Shi and Mrs. Shi were taken aback. Mrs. Shi covered her face, weeping. Jinshu, Jinshu, I knew you could awaken. Mr. Shi was also astonished, yet his demeanor shifted with alarming rapidity. You didn't hear that, did you? Huh. Dad is here to see you. Shi Jinshu scoffed. What do you think? Mr. Shi hastily assured everyone that he bore no ill intentions and requested the bodyguards return their belongings to the villa. With Shi Jinshu awake, it was inevitable that he would need to rely on him for support, and he could not afford to be too ruthless. As everyone reveled in the joy of Shi Jinshu's awakening, even Mr. Shi recognized his ungracious behavior today and quietly departed after offering multiple apologies. Were it not for our location in a residential area, the butler and Mrs. Shi might have wished to set off fireworks in celebration. Meanwhile, I stood by, watching them exchange pleasantries. Mrs. Shi envisioned providing Shi Jinshu with the most exquisite rehabilitation package, determined to ensure his muscles recovered swiftly. Shi Jinshu's gaze frequently darted toward my face, yet I was at a loss for words. It dawned on me that my time in this role was nearing its conclusion. Although I have been caring for Shi Jinshu, we have not cohabitated. I merely chose a room on the second floor, lacking the essence of a true marital bond. Now, as a senior caregiver, it is time for me to gracefully exit. The following day, when I bid farewell to Mrs. Shi, her reluctance was palpable. What I had promised initially still stands, yet I found myself hesitating. Perhaps he was not fully awakened then, but now that Shi Jinshu is conscious, he may harbor his own thoughts. Xiaoman, you are Jinshu's lucky star. He has awakened, but is still in a state of confusion. Please continue to stay here for a while. I will grant you an additional $1 million when I settle your salary next month, just to keep me company. When to you? Mrs. Shi still bore the remnants of anxiety as the Shi family was in disarray following Shi Jinshu's recovery. Ultimately, I was swayed by her words and chose to remain in the villa, though I felt an overwhelming sense of discomfort. In the past, when Shi Jinshu lay in bed, we spoke freely, yet now, confronted with his living presence, I was filled with an indescribable awkwardness. Upon seeing me, Shi Jinshu also appeared hesitant, perhaps still grappling with how to present himself to me. I could not articulate my feelings, suddenly transformed from one of the villa's owners to a mere observer, feeling an unsettling sense of disparity within. Thankfully, the villa was once again bustling due to Shi Jinshu's awakening. Mrs. Shi had to entertain various high society women daily, while Shi Jinshu engaged diligently in rehabilitation training and the management of the family's assets, leaving me with little to do but assist them, which inadvertently granted me some freedom. I wandered through the villa, reminiscing about the past in its quiet corners. Sure, Jinxiu was far more endearing when he was confined to bed. He would pout, exclaiming, "This is uncomfortable. They hurt me. Come here, come here." He would voice his displeasure while basking in the sun, lamenting, "I want to wake up as a dark-skinned person, will I? How tragic. I have yet to witness animal migrations and have already become a local." He would share juicy gossip about the elite, saying, "They're nothing but trouble. They're not ashamed." He had several children while studying abroad and still pretends to be innocent. Recalling these moments brought a chuckle, only to be followed by the stark realization that they were not mine to cherish. Sure, Jinxiu was inherently a person of great stature. Had another taken my role, they would likely have struggled to suppress their emotions, especially since our hearts had intertwined through his unspoken thoughts. Yet, no one seemed to notice my presence. The servants were busy, the housekeeper was preoccupied, Mrs. Sure had her hands full, and Sure Jinxiu was equally engaged. Mrs. Sure finally had a chance to hold her head high. When Sure Jinxiu encountered misfortune, her husband had divorced her, and she was no longer invited to high society gatherings, which left her despondent for a long time. Everything had changed now. The villa had grown indifferent to my activities, and without any substantial responsibilities. I felt it was time to depart. My father called me, requesting a meeting. His tone was urgent, as if he were facing a grave matter. With little to occupy my time at the villa, I grabbed a bag and left, finding a quiet restaurant to sit across from him. "Didn't I already repay you?" During my time working at the villa, I had not seen my father. His hair had grown peppered with gray, and he appeared frail, as though he could be swept away by the wind at any moment. "That's not what I wanted to discuss. I want you to leave the Sure family as soon as possible." "Why?" He spoke extensively, praising the Sure family, expressing his fears that I might fall for Sure Jinxiu, fearing I would become trapped and unable to bear the consequences. My heart was not inclined that way. Wan. Though I have been foolish all my life, I am a keen observer when it comes to your affairs. Such a remarkable man, now awakened, how could you possibly win his heart? You must heed your father's advice and leave before you become infatuated. I stared at him blankly. This was the first time my unreliable father had spoken with such urgency. You and he are worlds apart. Now that he has regained consciousness, he will seek a match suitable to his status. Where do you fit in? Even if you were to repay kindness with kindness, they have ways to deal with you. Wan, trust your father. Though I may be confused, I understand men well. For them, love is truly inconsequential. Moreover, can you be certain he feels love for you? You spend every day with him. Honestly, ask yourself. Do you not feel even a flicker of affection? Wan, you must leave. That is not a place for you. I stirred my latte, feeling its bitterness more acutely than ever before. Though I yearned to flee, the lengthy companionship had led me to regard the Sure family as my own. Now, my father was laying the harsh realities bare before me. "Father, worry not. I will return, gather my belongings, and depart." He exhaled in relief. "I am sorry for you. Had it not been for my debts, you would never have ended up in such a place." Wan, I regret it every day. You have become accustomed to a life of luxury, surrounded by such exceptional men. How will you manage to live on afterward? My father, once a reckless youth who drove my mother away, now implored me earnestly as an older man, stirring a sense of melancholy within me. He continued, "I wish to visit the places your mother once knew. She endured not a single day of happiness after marrying me. You must take care of yourself in Yun City. Always heed your father's words and steer clear of the Sure family." Upon my return to the villa, my father's words echoed in my mind as I overheard the servants whispering about Sure Jinxiu potentially remarrying. Numerous young ladies from affluent families were extending their olive branches to the Sure family, and even invitations had come from families of higher stature than the Shures. Mrs. Sure no longer insisted on my staying, awkwardly stating, "Xiaoman, given the current situation." I noticed a plethora of resumes from elite young women on the coffee table, ranging from those with prestigious educational backgrounds to those who had made names for themselves in the entertainment industry, all beautiful and intelligent, each one a striking contrast to me. After all, Sure Jinxiu was not only wealthy but also handsome and capable. Now that he had awakened, he had become the center of attention. Mrs. Sure inquired if I was aware of the relationship between Ruan Yu and young Master Bai, mentioning that reporters had captured numerous photos of Ruan Yu with Crown Prince Wu Yang. The Bai family dared not utter a word. She did not wish for my future to mirror theirs. I cannot control myself. My son's well-being is paramount. If he were to mistreat you in the future, what would you do? I nodded in understanding. I can see your point. Otherwise, if young Master Sher were to face misfortune, we would forever remain in different worlds. Mrs. Sher sighed in relief. You are a good girl. Should anything arise in the future, you can always seek me out. I would be honored to consider you my goddaughter. I graciously declined her kind offer, recognizing that which does not belong to me should not be coveted. Mrs. Sher generously extended my salary by several months, along with a bonus, which amounted to a substantial sum enough for me to purchase my own home in Yun City. I would like to express my gratitude once more, candidly affirming my intention to vacate the premises at the earliest opportunity, and I shall refrain from discussing this chapter of my life in public, so as not to cause any inconvenience to the future heiresses. Soon, I had tidied my belongings and departed from the villa where I had resided for a year. As my father had warned, lingering here any longer might ensnare me in a life that was never truly mine. Now that my father's debts have been repaid and he has left Yun City alone, I find no reason to remain. Dragging my cumbersome suitcase, I slowly exited the villa enclave. Normally, I would have a driver at my disposal, and I had never realized this path would take so long to traverse. The last time I had walked this route was for an interview at my home, which felt like an eternity ago. The road through the villa area was somewhat dimly lit, and as I navigated while walking, I failed to notice someone ahead of me. Ouch! A dull ache throbbed in my head as I suddenly collided with someone. My apologies. I heard the voice of Sir Jinshu. Where are you running off to? I felt a tinge of embarrassment, as if I had been caught sneaking away, but then I pondered, what was there to be embarrassed about? I raised my gaze and earnestly replied to Sir Jinshu. You are awake. My task is complete, and I am leaving. Sir Jinshu appeared somewhat fatigued as he grasped my wrist. Isn't this just sneaking away without a word? I was befuddled. Madame Sher was the one who employed me. I have settled my accounts with her, so this hardly qualifies as a flight, does it? Yet, the ambiguous nature of the job left me feeling increasingly guilty. Sir Jinshu leaned closer. But we haven't registered our marriage. You clearly promised to be my wife. Surely, you aren't trying to deceive me into a marriage, are you? Come on, why are you picking on a man who has just recovered from being a vegetable? If you leave like this, it would be quite embarrassing for me. What was Sir Jinshu rambling about? A deep blush crept from my ears to my cheeks, and I felt as though my entire face was on fire. He seemed utterly unconcerned with my discomfort, drawing even closer and whispering near my ear. While I was asleep, it was you who kept me company, wasn't it? You could hear my thoughts back then, couldn't you? Speak? I felt as if I might explode. Goodness, was my affection that evident? Did he truly know that I could hear his innermost feelings? I felt like a fish boiling in hot water, my entire being flushed with embarrassment under the weight of his presence, struggling to breathe. Mr. Sher, I do not comprehend what you are saying. With all my strength, I pried his grasp from my wrist, then fled in a panic. I had entertained the notion of a future with Sir Jinshu, but only under the condition that he remained confined to his bed. Now that he had risen and returned to his former world, my aspirations felt akin to those of a secondary character in a novel, merely a fleeting encounter that captivated the protagonist, yet destined for an unsatisfactory conclusion. I dashed out of the villa area, hailed a cab, and returned to the modest apartment I had just rented. I gulped down several glasses of cold water, striving to regain my composure. I repeated to myself multiple times, we do not inhabit the same world. We do not inhabit the same world. Tomorrow, I must continue my job search and endeavor to forget Sir Jinshu. Yet, he escalated his pursuits with fervor. Perhaps during this month of his awakening, he had resolved matters concerning the Sher family, for he now pursued me with the enthusiasm of a youth in his prime. Each day, as I departed, I would find exquisite flowers left at my doorstep, along with occasional lavish invitations to fine dining establishments and various gifts. Even when I attempted to return the items to the Sher villa, no one accepted them, and they inevitably found their way back to me. My small apartment became cluttered with Sir Jinshu's offerings, and my phone was inundated with messages filled with his rejected invitations. Even my close friend teased, my goodness. He is quite sincere, isn't he? What are you being so stubborn about? Wasn't it you who scrutinized everyone before? Now you wish to play the role of a familiar stranger? One might think you're acting in a soap opera. I felt exceedingly awkward under her scrutiny. I merely fear becoming the supporting character. My friend sighed. I used to think you were quite brave. Why do you now resemble a timid turtle? Ultimately, whether one is the protagonist or the supporting role depends on one's own perspective. Are you truly willing to abandon Shurjinshu and risk regretting it later? I fell silent. In my new job, Shurjinshu would sporadically send everyone milk, tea, and desserts, making a grand display akin to visiting a film set. My colleagues assumed I had a boyfriend, and even when a few clients hinted at interest, Shurjinshu would swiftly intervene. I resolved to clarify our relationship. Moreover, shouldn't Madame Shur be arranging numerous blind dates for him? Why was he so unoccupied? With a heavy sigh, I sent Shurjinshu a message, "Shall we talk?" His response arrived swiftly, "Sure." When I arrived at the venue Shurjinshu had chosen, I was greeted by a bouquet of roses presented by the server as I took my seat. My expression turned even more perplexed. I could not fathom his intentions. These roses resembled the ones I had planted at the Shur villa. It was astonishing that he remembered. Shurjinshu spoke first. "I have no intention of getting engaged. I have no interest in those heiresses." I replied, "What? Even if you are not seeking engagement, you could still select from the individuals Madame Shur has presented, couldn't you? Why are you telling me this? Do you wish to use me as a shield?" Shurjinshu appeared somewhat vexed, his bangs lifting slightly. "That is not my intention." Man. What exactly are you avoiding? Can't you grant me a chance?" I gazed at Shurjinshu's strikingly handsome face, which could incite jealousy in gods and men alike, and stated earnestly, "We do not inhabit the same world. If I were to accept your pursuit, I would feel terrified. Since you are aware of my ability to hear your thoughts, I shall speak plainly. Madame Shur has shared with me the story of Wanyu, and I do not wish to follow in her footsteps." Shurjinshu sighed. "I knew you would bring that up. But a marriage between prominent families does not guarantee a lasting union. I am no prince. I was a bedridden patient for so long. And it was your care that awakened me. Man, my world is not as you imagine." He gestured for me to follow him into a private room, signaling for me to listen intently to the sounds emanating from the adjacent space. The semi-open room concealed us from view, yet it lacked complete soundproofing. Straining to listen, I could discern voices from next door. My curiosity compelled me to lean closer to the wall. To my utter astonishment, I recognized the voices of Wu Yang and Wanyu. My eyes widened in disbelief as Shurjinshu motioned for silence. Wu Yang's voice was indifferent. "Isn't the man I found for you suitable? He will obey my commands, and we can maintain our relationship." Wanyu spoke in a gentle tone, "But I think of you every single day. Sleeping beside Baizhe only makes me feel nauseous. Countless times, I have wished that my pillow companion was you. Alas." Wu Yang offered her a few words of comfort before inquiring, "Has the baby been kicking you lately? The child in your womb is one that I desire as well. Please take good care and bring him into this world." Wanyu suddenly grew a bit agitated. "Once he is born, will he bear the surname Bai or Wu?" "Wu Yang, how can you be so heartless? Is it so difficult for me to be with you?" Yet, Wu Yang refrained from comforting her further. "I have not withheld resources from your Wan family, Wanyu. It was you who chose to climb into my bed. You must accept the outcome now." Wanyu fell silent, and Wu Yang soothed her a bit more. The two seemed to reconcile as before. When they departed, I finally exhaled. This had been prearranged eavesdropping. Truly a simplistic means of indulging in gossip. "So, are you planning to find me a husband like Wu Yang?" Shurjinshu coughed a couple of times. "How could that be? Am I that kind of person?" "To put it bluntly, man, you harbor a bias against me. Today, I wish to tell you that my car accident was indeed related to those two. I was quite literally betrayed at that moment. What a farce, this so-called aristocratic marriage. All driven by interests and desires." Shurjinshu recounted how, in his youth, he had stumbled upon Wu Yang and Wanyu's affair and had confronted Wanyu for an explanation. Wu Yang resorted to a violent method, finding a drunkard and flooring the accelerator, which resulted in Shurjinshu losing consciousness for quite some time. Once he regained awareness, Wu Yang tested him multiple times, and upon seeing that he truly remembered nothing, he let him go. Shurjinshu sighed. At that time, Wanyu was still my fiancée. I had no idea when she climbed into Wu Yang's bed. Perhaps she has always been an ambitious person, merely concealing it too well. I sighed in response. "You are indeed unfortunate. Had it not been for this fiancé, you might have children by now." Shurjinshu was momentarily speechless. He paused. "I share this with you so that you may understand my past, and, truth be told, I no longer care for it. After lying in this state for so long, I am quite aware of who has treated me well. His gaze was intense, nearly scorching my face. Nervously sipping my water, I attempted to divert the conversation. Will you seek revenge on them? Sure, Jinshu locked eyes with me, earnestly stating, I will indeed seek my revenge, but not solely out of hatred. During my time in a coma, I also felt love. Man, could you grant me a chance? Those social hierarchies do not belong to the same world. I have never cared for them. I have already brushed against death. It is only in such moments that one realizes much of this life is ephemeral. If you place great importance on these matters, I am willing to transfer half of my assets into your name. Then, may I pursue you? As Jinshu escorted me home, my mind remained in a daze. It felt as though a pie had fallen from the sky, rendering me utterly befuddled. Indeed, beauty can lead one astray. I had resolutely intended to bid farewell to Jinshu, yet now I found a flicker of uncertainty within me. Mrs. Sher also invited me to the villa for a chat. Gazing at the 7-figure sum in my account, I found it impossible to refuse. Upon entering the villa, the butler and servants bowed in unison, "Good day, young madam." Previously, I could respond with calm composure, but now an awkwardness surged from the soles of my feet. Sitting beside Mrs. Sher, she smiled warmly. "Oh dear, little man, how come we have grown so distant in such a short time?" I managed an awkward smile. Mrs. Sher continued, "Initially, I misjudged the situation, thinking it was merely my one-sided affection. I had no idea that Jinshu actually held you in such regard. He said that during his time as a vegetative state, your voice was his constant companion. Without you, he would not have recovered so swiftly." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "He expressed a desire to be with you, rejecting all other heiresses. If he could not be with you, he would prefer to be alone. After experiencing such significant events, I sincerely wish for his future to be filled with joy and fulfillment." Little man, you are a good child. I must apologize for my previous words. I understood her intention to persuade me today. Yet I was taken aback by the sincerity of her words. Upon reflection, I could not hold her accountable. This was merely a series of unfortunate events, and she had only wished to return to the previous timeline. However, now, I assured Mrs. Sher, "This is somewhat sudden for me. I will contemplate it thoroughly." Upon leaving, Mrs. Sher insisted on gifting me several exquisite handbags and jewelry. This is my token of affection. As an elder, I cannot refuse. This could be seen as a united front from mother and son. Mrs. Sher repeatedly invited me to the villa for meals. Jinshu stood beneath my apartment building, eager to drive me to and from work, yet I ultimately relented. "We can give it a try. However, I must finish my PhD first. I have just been accepted, and I do not wish to squander it." In truth, I had contemplated how awkwardly I would stand beside Jinshu. In every conceivable aspect, his life was far more vibrant than mine. If I did not strive diligently, the chasm between us would only widen. Yet our relationship had softened considerably. His retaliation against Wan Yu and Wu Yang was not concealed from me. In fact, this matter even made headlines. Wan Yu's belly had grown quite large. The media captured her in simple attire, unadorned, resembling a delicate flower swaying in the wind. Yet she was seen driving a luxurious car to confront the young master of the Bai family. To her astonishment, she discovered 2 men in bed. The media's headlines were quite humorous. "Bai family young master is a homosexual. How did he impregnate a heiress?" In no time, the internet was abuzz with mockery. Some ridiculing Wan Yu for marrying a homosexual and becoming his wife, while others derided the Bai family heir for appearing respectable yet being a bottom. The Bai family heir seemed unconcerned, refusing to salvage his image, and even the Bai family was at a loss. "I married her as you wished. You all agreed that as long as the marriage took place, I could do as I pleased. Now you want to impose conditions. This is a different price altogether." Wan Yu, pinching her nose, and Mrs. Bai provided him with a substantial sum before he reluctantly agreed to clarify the situation. He had settled down and now wished only to treat his wife and the child in her womb with care. Yet fate is unpredictable. Wan Yu's affair with Wu Yang was discovered by Wu Yang's wife, who personally sought out Wan Yu and wreaked havoc on the Wan household. Wan Yu dared not even breathe a word. Wu Yang's wife declared, "You dare engage in such activities beneath my nose? When your child is born, he will be sent to me to raise, and publicly it will be claimed that you bore a stillborn for the Bai family." Wan Yu found herself at a loss for words and confronted Wu Yang in a rage. Eventually, she obediently delivered the child to the Wu family. From that point onward, Wan Yu rarely ventured outside, growing increasingly weary of the Bai family heir's presence. Shi Jinxiu remarked that Wan Yu remained a proud individual. She certainly did not perceive herself as defeated, and there were still disputes to be had with the Wu family. One cannot help but wonder how long the Wu family's influence will be able to manipulate the media. Once their antics become unbearable, he intends to bring the prior incidents involving Wu Yang and Wan Yu to the forefront. Shi Jinxiu, who had previously contemplated delivering a decisive blow to them, now finds solace in their mutual destruction. As long as he remains unscathed, he possesses ample time to indulge in this grand spectacle alongside me. Shi Jinxiu, this should suffice for their little dogfight, my dear. When shall we embark on our honeymoon? Me, let us discuss that later. We haven't even spoken of marriage yet. My mentor holds high expectations for me, asserting that I am destined to achieve great results. In Shi Jinxiu's room, on his bed, lay peculiar rosy-hued items, sprinkled with the rose petals I had planted years ago at the villa. Me? What is this? Just strips of cloth? Suddenly, realization dawned upon me, and my face flushed with embarrassment. How shameless! How utterly disgraceful! Who could have possibly done this? Before I could unleash my indignation in front of Shi Jinxiu, he swept me into his arms. We can converse on the bed. You've seen me in my entirety. Now, let me see what troubles you. Don't you wish to experiment? As my fingers brushed against his sculpted abs, my cheeks grew even warmer. No, I must not waver in my resolve. I have yet to graduate. What if you become the first to strike once you reach the shore? I fear the consequences. Shall we first obtain our marriage certificate? The narrative concludes here. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again in the next tale.